Welcome back to part 2 of What If General Grievous was Force Sensitive. Thank you to those of you who watched the first part of this video. To recap what happened in that part in case you haven't seen it, Grievous had been injected with the blood of Sifo-Dyas on his way to becoming a cyborg, and it had the effect of making him Force sensitive. Dooku had kept the powers a secret, and it is Obi-Wan who is first to be surprised by the powers, briefly being held under capture before his Padawan arrived for a rescue. But in his attempt to save him, the cave above them collapsed, and it is up to Plo Koon to save the Jedi. Above the Jedi Council member, Clone Commander Wolf guided a small group of Republic gunships, landing just outside of the droid factory's ruins. The Wolf Pack assisted in dragging the rubble with their cables, finding all three Jedi located in vicinity of each other, but before they could check upon the condition of Grievous, to bring him into the hands of the Republic, all of the Geonosians arrived from their underground hives and started to attack the Republic forces. The Keldor Master pulled the Jedi to safety with the Force, and as the clones repelled the attacks of the native soldiers, they scrambled back to safety. Aboard the Venator-class Star Destroyer of Plo Koon's second fleet, Obi-Wan, Anakin and Luminara were recovering from their wounds, but what concerned them most of all was the Force sensitivity displayed by General Grievous. The Jedi were wary that Dooku could have an entire army of such monsters, and upon their return to Coruscant, they meet to discuss with the Chancellor on how to counter the Separatist technology. Palpatine is just as surprised as the Jedi to hear of the powers of Grievous, and proposes that the Republic should divert some of their spending away from the clone army on Kamino, to create Force-sensitive cyborgs of their own, and leaving the Jedi to deliberate their decision. A furious Palpatine communicates with his apprentice. Dooku immediately knew they was in trouble, and internally scolded the failure of Grievous to leave no traces of his victims behind, so he had to try and convince Palpatine that Grievous was extremely limited in his use of the Force, despite the account of the Jedi. The Dark Lord of the Sith easily bypasses the treachery of his apprentice, and lifts him into the air before choking him, then orders him to ensure Grievous did not exceed the power that their plan required. Dooku recovered to bow to the hologram of his master, but he had no plans to obey him, and turning to the cyborg that had just bowed to his feet, he taught Grievous the powers of Force concealment, to ensure that Sidious could not sense his rise in power. Back at the Jedi Temple, the Jedi were discussing the proposal put forward by Palpatine, when Yoda realised that what Dooku had done to Grievous exceeded all known abilities of the Force. Not only had Dooku successfully manipulated midichlorians, but he had somehow acquired the blood of a Jedi, as the blood of the Sith would not be able to survive the wounds that Grievous had sustained. Once again, the Keldor Jedi Master Plo Koon is dispatched to investigate which Jedi had been utilised for their blood, but this time Obi-Wan was there to assist him. Master Kenobi takes his familiar seat in the Jedi archives, and there he searched through the Jedi database for every casualty since Dooku had been a part of the Jedi Order. Many Knights, Padawans and Initiates had not been accounted for, but the name of Jedi Master Sifo-Dyas stood out to him, having heard stories from his master Qui-Gon that Dooku and Sifo-Dyas had been inseparable before his death. The Jedi Council researched the Maverick Jedi Master, and found that he had died on a mission to Felucia, but the report had been closed by the office of the previous Supreme Chancellor Finis Valorum. The former Chancellor revealed that the Jedi account of the events had been misleading, and that Sifo-Dyas had actually been on the mission to Oba Diah, so the Jedi take a journey to the land of the Pike Syndicate. Outside of the fortress, Dooku is already waiting for them, having intercepted a transmission between the Jedi and their fleet, and he commends the Jedi for their efforts to track him down. Dooku offers to share the secret of Grievous' success in return for their alliance, but the Jedi refuse his offer, so Dooku orders for the droids to surround the Jedi. Several droid battalions drop from the skies, whilst Dooku retreated to the comfort of his ship, and Grievous emerged from another. The cyborg had improved his Force abilities in the short period of time since his last encounter with the Jedi, and tried to choke them before they could move towards him, but they deflected the Force attack and retreated back into the palace. Members of the Pike stepped out to confront the droids, and using this to their advantage, the Jedi jumped back to their ships to head to their home planet, now aware that Dooku had used Sifo-Dyas to enhance Grievous. The Jedi used the recently deceased Jedi Master Orden Essence to test if it was possible to manipulate midichlorians, aware that a new type of clone war had just begun. That is it for part 2 of What If General Grievous was Force sensitive. If you'd like to see a part 3 soon, please like this video, turn on that notification bell, click that subscribe button on this channel, as well as on my other channel What If Films. And as always, leave a comment on what if you'd all like to see next, and how I can improve my videos. Thank you all very much for watching, and see you next time.